Are you hosting a holiday party or special corporate event soon? If so, then you need to have a photo booth. And Pick Me Events is the best in H-Town. That's who we used for our Listener Appreciation Fest, and the pictures were awesome. From classic photo booths to a VIP 360-degree video setup, they have it all. And check this out. Their new Pixie robot is a roaming robot that will move around your event and come to you to take pictures. It sounds like sci-fi, but it is real. Check them out at pickmeevents.com. That's PICME events.com. And mention CityCast Houston for a special discount. Step into a world of real holiday magic at Coca-Cola's Classic Christmas, debuting November 16th and running through December 29th at Houston's Memorial City Mall. This season, cherished holiday traditions come to life in Houston amid a spectacle of dazzling lights. Crafted by the creators of the renowned world's largest Christmas light maze, Enchant Christmas, this immersive holiday celebration promises to create unforgettable moments of togetherness and joy at this beloved time of year. Learn more at ClassicChristmas.com. That's ClassicChristmas.com. Today on CityCast Houston. For the first time in 8 years, Harris County is going to have a new district attorney when Teare takes office on January 1st. And all eyes are on the veteran prosecutor. It's a big job, managing a budget of over $100 million, leading more than 350 prosecutors, and oh yeah, almost every decision impacts public safety. But Teare says he has a plan. He joins me to lay it out, from how his team will file better charges to creating a new domestic violence bureau, and so much more. It's Monday, December 9th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. What is up, Sean? How are you? I don't feel right calling you just Sean, even though I do know you a little bit. I have to say District Attorney-elect Teare. What's up? How are you?
Nothing, man. Great. And it is just Sean. Shall always be just Sean.
Just to let our listeners know, you and I met through a mutual friend, Lance Zierlein, who, by the way, is now a Texas Radio Hall of Famer. Did you know that?
I congratulated him when I saw it. I mean, you know what it means? It just means he's old.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I said, this isn't a great award for you right now because now I get to make old jokes. But, Lance always spoke so highly of you, and he still does. And he would always tell me about how hands-on you were when you were leading the vehicular crimes division. You would show up at crash sites and you were on the ground doing work. And that won a lot of respect with your colleagues and people across the justice system. What are you going to do now to earn their respect, this time as the top dog? You are the top prosecutor in the county.
Yeah. And there's not a lot that's going to change there. I'm not going to make as many crash scenes for sure.
Yeah.
But one of my really first year goals is to stand up a homicide call out team, like we had the vehicular crimes call out team, so that we have a prosecutor with boots on the ground at every murder. I don't think any prosecutor maybe in the country has made as many crime scenes as I have. So I'm going to be there as I really am in a lot of things, with my hands in there as we stand that up. So you'll see me back at different kinds of scenes. I'll still go to some crash scenes.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a heavy lift to fix the office. But you will not get tired of seeing me at crime scenes and things like that, because I think the victims and the public deserve that. If you're going to put me in this job, you're going to see me working. You're not just going to hear about it. You're going to see me working.
Man, Sean, how are you going to find the time for all of this? There's a lot to accomplish here.
Well, I'm going to do that in between coaching Little League Baseball and flag football and tackle football and all the other things that I'm not giving up either.
Man, there's a lot to talk about in this interview, so I want to jump right in. Yeah. Let's start with the election results. You won the Democratic primary against Kim Ogg by a landslide back in March, but then the general election was a lot tougher, and you won by about 24,000 votes, and that's a pretty narrow margin. Will that change how you lead the district attorney's office by any chance?
No. And the general election margins aren't driven really by the same top liners as a primary. In this specific case, nobody was coming out to vote for the presidential race in the primary. So it was Senate driven and, quite frankly, my race driven. So they came out and the Democrats overwhelmingly elected me in March. But the general was much more about the top of the ticket than any local race. So I know it's not going to change my priorities and what I plan to do in the office. You win by one vote or 100,000. It's basically the same.
So let's talk about your priorities. Come January 1st, you will officially become the Harris County District Attorney. And there's a lot of responsibilities that come with that. So, first day in office, what are you doing?
First day in office is a holiday, the first. So I'm going up and just going to move office furniture in and get ready. But what we're really going to do day one is fix the way we accept charges. We're
Okay.
going to stop taking a lot of these bad charges that we've seen over and over result in dismissals, no probable cause findings. We're going to change our intake division so that we're taking the right charges and we're getting them ready before we take someone to jail. We're helping law enforcement on the street make sure that we get those people to jail with an eye toward getting them disposed of, whatever that looks like, prison, diversion, probation, in a timely manner as opposed to where we are right now.
And for people who aren't familiar, the intake department is where your office will decide whether to accept or reject criminal charges after police make an arrest. So, how will you do that? And tell me about these bad charges.
Yeah, so we were the first office in the country to do this. And some of the larger agencies have followed suit, but no police officer in Harris County can arrest anyone without first calling the DA's office and running the facts by them and getting approval for that arrest. And so historically, that's led to better charges, the right charges getting filed, and law enforcement learning and understanding what's expected once it gets to court. Because everywhere else, police are just taught, let's get to probable cause, make an arrest, and then it's the DA's job to get them convicted. But we work more collaboratively here, or at least we have in the past. In the
Yeah.
last 8 years, we've broken that. And so what you've seen is a move toward incentivizing prosecutors down there, and I use the term prosecutors lightly because they're no longer experienced prosecutors that have been in courts. They're brand new hires. You're incentivizing them to just say yes without helping the officers get cases to a point where we need them. And we lose evidence that we don't collect that night a lot of times or that day.
Wow.
You lose surveillance footage. Witnesses don't get spoken to and then we can't find them again. We don't seize a cell phone that we're going to download. There are a lot of different things that we could and should be doing right there on the scene that could result in a better outcome for the community that isn't happening. So that's what I'm talking about with bad charges. It's not necessarily that we're saying yes or no the right or wrong way. It's that
Yeah.
we're not doing enough to help them get the case filed.
Well, Sean, I want to back up. How did this communication drop between the district attorney's office and Kim Ogg, who was the last DA, and the police department, right? Because this sounds like a pretty big failure when it comes to that previous administration.
I think it's one of the reasons I won by 50 points. But she decided that this was a model she didn't like.
Hmm.
And so, in her words, she decided to professionalize intake, meaning she was hiring people off the streets and their only job is to work a shift answering phones. And when you think about it, someone that goes through 4 years of college, 3 years of law school, studies and passes the bar, the caliber of people that you're going to get to sign up for a job with no ability to promote, working midnight to 8, 5 days a
Hmm.
week, you're going to see the kind of charges that we're seeing right now. And you're going to see the lack of trust that we have had now with law enforcement.
So, how do you fix it, right? Because this sounds like a multi tiered problem with one, getting that line open again with the officers, two, hiring experienced prosecutors, getting them back into the intake division. What else am I missing? How long will this all take?
One day,
One day.
what we're doing is going back to a hybrid of the old model
Okay.
where prosecutors would work for extra money, an overtime shift from 5 to midnight. And then the other prosecutors would come in from midnight to 8. And then as you promote, you would work the day shift until you move to another spot. The idea is you will always have a lawyer on the phone talking to the police that is at the same level of experience as they could go try that case that they're talking about. So you're incentivized
Hmm.
to say no if the case is never going to be proven, or to say yes, but I need this, this, and this before we take this person to jail. Because the next day you could be handling that case in your court and you know what that case needs. And so that's the way it was instituted back in 1972. It's the way all other agencies do it around the country, and it's the way we're going to go back to.
Wow. That is going to be interesting to see all these changes put into place. Now, I
Mhm.
also understand that another big priority from day one for you is creating a new bureau for domestic violence cases. How would that work?
So what we have right now is the domestic violence division, and it's important, and it takes high risk intimate partner violence cases and what we call recanting victim intimate partner violence cases, meaning the police are called, an offender is arrested, and the survivor decides they don't want to prosecute anymore. It goes to be evaluated from our domestic violence division.
Okay.
In total, that's about 30% of all the intimate partner violence cases that we have in file. What we're going to do is bring the other 70% from random courts that they are fallen into. We're going to beef up the prosecutor numbers and the support staff numbers in this bureau. And so you're going to have trauma informed prosecutors that handle every intimate partner case that are supported with victim assistance coordinators, trauma informed support staff, all of our other stakeholders who want to help get the survivors to a position where they don't need to go back to the abuser, where they don't need
Yeah.
to rely on that for whatever reason. And what you're going to see in all the departments that have done this around the country, the outcomes have been so much better for everyone involved, a lot of times, including the offender. And everyone that has done this has seen their intimate partner homicide numbers plummet. And that is one of the largest drivers of homicide in our county.
That's amazing to hear. And it sounds like a lot of resources will be needed for this,
Yeah.
entire new bureau. Where's the budget going to come from for this?
Well, I am going to be transparent with our
Yeah.
commissioners court. I'm going to be collaborative with all the other people. And we've already sat down and had numerous discussions with our Office of Budget Management, with our county administrator, and with all five of the commissioners and the judge on the court. They're excited about these programs. They are going to, I believe, fund them the way that they need to be funded, because the court has never wanted to not give money to the DA's office.
Yeah.
They are just asking for some ability to know where the money is being spent. And I intend to do that.
Do you have a rough estimate on how much this would cost?
Yeah, what we're on this one for the specific bureau, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about 15 to 20 more positions
Okay.
up and down the line. So, it's going to be a couple of $1 million a year added to the budget for the Domestic Violence Bureau. But, when you think about the cost of prosecuting a single intimate partner murder,
Yeah.
it pays for itself. And I hate to say it that way, but quite frankly, it's a cost saving method.
No, I totally agree. And again, the benefits that go to society, the lives
Right.
that could be saved, the lives that are impacted by domestic violence, it is
That's right.
such an important cause, and one that usually not the type of crime that people talk about when they talk about public safety. Why is domestic violence so important to you?
it, Domestic violence is one of the largest drivers of public safety. When you look at mass casualty events, more than 33% of all offenders in mass casualty events have a prior domestic violence history. That it drives so much other crime that we don't even correlate it to. But that's not specifically why it is a passion of mine. I lost my mom to heroin addiction when I was in really high school, and she eventually died in my early 20s. But before that, she was a victim, as most addicts are, of intimate partner violence in two separate instances. So watching the most vulnerable people out there become the victims of this, it hit home early.
Whenever I want to escape the city, I love to go to the Texas Hill Country. It's one of my favorite places on earth, and now you can enjoy the magic of the Hill Country by ringing in the new year at the Omni Barton Creek Resort and Spa just outside of Austin. Start New Year's Eve off with a multi-course dinner with special wine pairings at the award-winning Blind Salamander Kitchen and Bar. Then celebrate with a champagne toast in the middle of a winter wonderland at the Lady Bird Lawn, which will be covered in snow. And the Omni Barton Creek Resort hasn't forgotten about the kids because their experienced staff has an evening full of activities like arts and crafts, games, and movies planned for the kiddos. So the entire family can end 2024 on a high note. Book your table now for the dinner and wine pairings on Open Table by searching for Blind Salamander Kitchen and Bar. And just Google Omni Barton Creek to learn more about all of the New Year's Eve events at the resort. Ring in the new year in Central Texas at the Omni Barton Creek Resort and Spa.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
I want to talk to you about Harris County Jail, and it's something that we've covered on this podcast for a long time, and it's so overcrowded right now that people that are accused of crimes are being sent to out-of-state facilities for nearly 3 years. Now, I know the Harris County Sheriff's Office is responsible for the day-to-day operations at the jail, but your office, the District Attorney's Office, can also impact overcrowding in terms of how you prioritize cases and other policies. So, Sean, what are you going to do to help ease overcrowding at the jail?
So it is not the sheriff's fault. The jail overcrowding is a direct fault of the DA's office because remember, we talked about intake. Every person that gets to go to that jail is told to be taken there by the DA's office. We are responsible for the overcrowding. The length of stay is the real driving factor. Okay. So right now in the Harris County Jail, the length of stay for every inmate is 180 days. That's way outside the norm of any other county jail in the state, but it's 180 days. And that's averaging everyone from the person that gets arrested for a DWI and is out in 7 hours to the person that's been there 11 years awaiting, regaining competency to be tried for capital murder. Combined, they're all 180 days. If you reduce that number, that average stay number to 175 days, just 5 days different, we immediately stop having to bus people to Post, to LaSalle in Louisiana, to all of the other places. Just 5 days. That's all we've got to do to save this county $54 million a year in simply doing that.
Wow. How do you do that?
So number one, we fix intake. You change the way that we accept the charges. We stop taking bad charges and we take charges that are ready to be tried in a short amount of time. So then your guys and gals that are there for 1 year are now only there for 9 months. The people that are there for 6 months are only there for 4 months because we've obtained the evidence in a much faster way that day. So we can start turning those cases over. You start being really intentional about the diversion programs. There's no reason that someone needs to wait in jail for 3 months if we're going to eventually determine that they're a diversion candidate. You start cutting those people out because we're giving them that diversion opportunity in a week as opposed to 3 months. All of those things are going to come together. And it's 5 days is my benchmark, but I don't see any reason that we're not in the 160s in 6 months.
Wow, in 6 months, because it sounds like this is a problem that's going to take years to fix. So I'm shocked to hear that number, frankly.
It will take years to fix the systemic issues. There's no question, but it is so broken. I mean, this office is so broken that there are some day one quick fixes that, quite frankly, a ton of us inside the office have been advocating for years that we know will change can give immediate feedback of success. What we've got to then do is build on that success. We've got to get down to 160 and then keep going. We've got to get down to where the Harris County Jail is no longer a warehouse for human beings. It's
Yeah.
a way station for your next destination, be that prison or a diversion program or probation or whatever it is. We've got to stop warehousing human beings.
You brought up the systemic issues. Is that something that you could fix during your time as DA?
I can certainly attack some of them.
Okay.
I think when you start giving people another opportunity and a meaningful one, partnering with apprenticeship programs that give them a career and something to strive for, as opposed to some of these diversion programs that make us feel good because we're giving somebody a diversion, but give them no other alternative than to go back to what led them to the system the first time. When you start changing the way that the criminal justice system is envisioned, and have it be more restorative where it can be, then you've got more bandwidth to go after the people who, quite frankly, aren't going to be restored. They are
Hmm.
just dangerous to the rest of us. And so that's my model. We're going to go after the dangerous people. We're just not going to create the next generation of them that we've been
Gotcha.
doing for decades and decades and decades.
I love hearing that. Now, one part of your office that is an important part is that yes, you work with the accused, but also the people who've been victims of crime and their families. We were talking with Paul Castro, whose son David was tragically shot and killed in a
Yes.
roadway shooting 3.5 years ago. I know you're familiar with Paul, and he shared that for victims' families, there's not a lot of support. How are you going to make sure that while people who are charged with crimes get due process, you also support the needs and trauma of crime victims and their families?
So I talked to Paul last week, actually, and he's one of those that I think has really unique insights into how a family and the loved ones of a murdered victim experience the criminal justice system. He's not unique in having to go through it, but he is relatively unique in his ability to communicate it. He has such insight into this that quite frankly, I don't. Because I've never been on that side. I've held hands, I've hugged, I've cried with them, but I've never felt it from their perspective.
Yeah.
And so I've leaned on him a lot throughout this process to look for ways that we can make the worst experience of their life somewhat less traumatic during the process. And so the first thing we have to do is listen. The first thing we have to do is be prepared to have some uncomfortable truths told about our office and the way that we do treat crime victims. And we need to be able to pivot. One of the most glaring problems that we have right now is that our victims sometimes have to ride in the elevator with the individual who's accused of taking their loved one's life, or sit in the same area while they're awaiting, the doors to open. So having designated spaces inside the courthouse,
Hmm.
having a designated voice from the DA's office that speaks to them and keeps them updated, and not five different voices, a prosecutor, an administrative assistant, a victim assistant, having one voice that communicates what needs to be communicated. There's so many, and I know they sound big, but there's so many little things that we can do to at least not re-victimize on a daily basis the people who are going through the worst moments of their lives.
No, that sounds like a fix that can be done right away as well.
Right.
So I love hearing that as well. Before I let you go, I have to ask you about what is going to start as you take over as district attorney, and that is the Trump administration and from his political allies like Elon Musk.
Yep.
And Trump has promised to target what he calls radical prosecutors. And Elon Musk has announced that he'll use his political action committee to target prosecutors like yourself who have accepted money from the liberal donor George Soros. Now, Sean, are you feeling the heat? Like, do you feel like you have a target on your back from them?
I mean, look, I am a Democrat and I was elected to the third largest county in the country.
Yeah.
There's no question that I'm going to have a target from the Republicans on my back. They want Harris County back. I know that.
Mhm.
But I am not, at least in my mind and the way that my career has taken me, I'm not what you would call a rogue prosecutor, a out of the way prosecutor. I believe in holding people accountable. I
Mhm.
believe that while very flawed, the criminal justice system is a system that can work. And I believe that the way you fix it is from within. There are people in this world that are too violent to be amongst us. Anyone that will tell you differently has not been in my shoes and seen the volume of tragedy that those people can wrought on a
Mhm.
community. So we're going to hold people accountable. But I have also seen, without question, a direct line from low level nonviolent criminal convictions and what that does to a person and how that leads that person to, quite frankly, the only thing that's left open to them, which is more and bigger crimes. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to get in the business of not creating those when I don't have to. But once you get to a certain point, you're going away.
Yes, you are a Democrat, but I've never considered you like a political figure, right? But with
Right.
that being said, have you reached across the aisle and talked to Republicans and talked to conservative voices about the shape of the district attorney's office and what it could look like and what they want to see as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I have. I've sat down with the Houston Police Officers Union. I've sat down with Commissioner Ramsey, the lone Republican on the
Mhm.
commissioner's court. I've had them identify people that they would like to have a voice on my transition committee and to be there because that's the only way. I'm not just the DA of the Democrats in Harris County.
Yeah.
I'm the DA of everyone. And you're right, Real. I've never been a political person. I just want to do this job. I want to do it well. I want to restore the greatness and the integrity and make it better than it's ever been of an institution I've loved my entire professional life.
Can't wait to see all the changes. And one last thing before we move forward, I do have to go back, Sean. What about your former boss, Kim Ogg? Now, she obviously won't be in that office anymore, but just kind of reading the tea leaves, I feel like she's going to be sticking around Houston politics and just law in general. Are you worried about Kim Ogg? Like, is she going to make things more difficult for you as you transition and take over as DA?
Look, during the transition, I think she's proven to be extremely difficult. That's not something I'm surprised about.
Mhm.
And I don't envision a world where she is supportive of our administration. And so, I've dealt with some really scary, bad people in my life. Kim Ogg ain't one of them.
Mm.
I'm not worried about that.
Sean, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being so open about every single answer. And here comes day one. It's going to be here before you know it. So good luck and don't be a stranger on the podcast. Okay. We'd love to have you back.
Anytime, brother. Thank you, Raheel.
That was Harris County District Attorney-elect Sean Teare, or just Sean, as he likes it. Before we go, we need your help. We are announcing our first ever CityCast Houston Awards presented by Downtown Houston Plus, and we have 3 categories: Power and Politics, Food and Drink, and H-Town Hero. You can vote right now with the link in our show notes, and we'll announce those winners on a future episode. And if you enjoyed this interview with Sean Teare, please share it with 3 friends who care about public safety. You can also give us a rating and review and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Houston, with the link in our show notes. Thanks. That will do it for today. I'm Raheel Ramzanali. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new.
But before we go, we do have to talk about the 3-game suspension. I mean, I
Yeah. I was
thought it was
going to
going to drop
ask
down
you,
to 2 at least, man.
Sean is a huge sports fan, right? Again, Lance Erline worked in sports radio and still does at ESPN Houston, and we always talk sports.
I mean, look, I played quarterback my whole high school career, and so when I was going to have to slide, I knew that I was going to let everybody know I was sliding.